Up next on Inside the SCCA, Track Night in America. My guest on this episode of Inside the SCCA is the manager of the program that, for many, is their first introduction to the Sports Car Club of America. Justin Barbary has been a coach at track night events. He's a coach for time trials, a multi-time trophy winner at the Tire Rack Solo Nationals. He scored a top 5 road racing finish at the Runoffs. And away from the track, he has gotten his leadership and organizational skills from being a 911 dispatcher in North Carolina. Justin, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you were the guy on the other side of the microphone when I was an EMT.
It could possibly have happened.
No one is better at getting things organized and done than dispatchers. I get that completely. So
we like most public safety officials find ways to work under pressure that just seem easy sometimes.
And there's no pressure when you're running race events, right?
No.
Anyway.
Motorsports events never present any pressure or issues at all.
Not at all. So welcome. Thanks for being here. And now I saw a little bio that I stole all that info from a year ago when you were named the interim head of Track Night. Are you still the interim, or are you now the guy?
Well, I think we can probably say that I am the guy. I don't think the title has quite been updated on the SCCA page. I might have to get on somebody about that.
That may have been an older. It was a press release from when you were first named interim, and I didn't take the time to go look any deeper. So, yeah, that's how this club works. By the way, is a lot of times the interim is just hangs out there forever, and you're just the person doing the job. So, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So, tell me how because all of us have a story, and anybody who's listened to more than like one of the podcasts knows that I like to start with the story. So what's your story? How did you get involved with motorsports?
Well, as all things, there's a lot of details that we probably don't have time for. I think the best place to start is that in the late 90s, as I was doing my best to flunk out of college, I started working for a motorcycle dealership.
Oh.
And kind of got into that motorcycle world and then doing track days with motorcycles and that sort of stuff. And did that for a couple of years and then realized that at the pace that I was going, I wasn't going to survive in good shape for very long in that environment. So in the early 2000s, I started playing around with cars, and the rest is history. I like to tell people that I haven't fallen off my car yet, which is a really good sign, which was not the case when I was with motorcycles. So my body thanks me for the transition.
Yeah, I bet. It's like when people ask me, I'm from Wisconsin, why I moved to California, I tell them because I don't have to shovel sunshine. So it's everybody has their reasons for doing what they're doing. So what was your first car that you played with?
So the first ever new car that I bought that actually ended up becoming a car that I autocrossed was when the Mazda Protege 5s first came out. I thought they looked really cool, but I liked the 4 doors and hatchback style, so it was kind of still utilitarian. I could put a hitch on it and pull a motorcycle trailer around if I needed to. Found a local friend who was doing some autocrossing in a turbo Miata, and was actually one of in the leadership role for one of the local independent autocross clubs. And he said, "Why don't you bring that thing out and see if you can take it around this autocross course once?" And after the first run, I knew that was what I was going to do for the foreseeable future. So it took 60 seconds behind a wheel at an autocross course, and I was hooked.
And that's the story for most club members, many club members my age, because back in the day, we didn't have track night in America. And the easiest, least expensive way to, kind of play with cars, and I actually think it still is, because last I checked, the price to get into a track night is usually 150, 160. What is the cost?
I think we average around 160 to 165.
Yeah. And most solos events, your local events, you can get into for under $100, and sometimes easily, it's a lot under $100 depending on whether you're a member and all that kind of stuff. So I really do think the getting involved in solo is less expensive than getting involved in track days. Now, if you want to be competitive in solo, because we actually time ourselves and there's trophies at the end, you can spend a buttload of money racing solo.
You can be as competitive as you want to be, or you can have as much fun as you want to have.
Yep.
You just pick your road and do what you can afford to do.
For some people, one is expensive, and for some people, the other is not. So, so from there, you ended up. I see you've got a couple of solo nationals, and that you've done really well in, and then you've also gone to the runoffs. What did you race at the runoffs?
We ran in B-Spec in 2019 at Virginia International Raceway, which is basically my home track. I live kind of in the middle of several tracks, but that's the one that I visit the most. So, and had a really great time at the runoffs. Cool. So that was a fun year. Cool.
Yeah, I lived in Charlottesville for a while, so VIR and Summit Point were my 2 points to go to when I was living there, and got to both of those tracks a lot when I was there for the time I was there. So VIR is great, and I was there for the first event when they reopened it.
Oh, that would be amazing.
And I wasn't competing. I don't know if I was there as a journalist or I was there as a flagger, or maybe I was there as both, probably. That would be a better idea. But anyway, so I was there for the reopening of VIR. And I didn't know really any of the history because I'm not old enough to remember VIR before it closed down. But I'm real happy it came back. So it was pretty awesome to be there for that. But so now you have gotten yourself to messed up with the national. I mean, now you're part of the national office. And and so how did that whole thing come about?
Some of it through Autocross Connections. I've been doing the solo national tours and solo nationals for probably about a decade, or close to a decade at the time, and had become, very good acquaintances with John Krolowitz and Hayward Wagner and, several people that were very much at the ground level of creating the track night program, several years ago. And just got a call one day from John Krolowitz and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming down to Atlanta Motorsports Park and helping me coach an event?" And kind of the rest is history at that point. Luckily, you mentioned being a 911 dispatcher. The schedule that I worked left me with some availability during the middle of the week, and track night events are typically on weekdays. So it was pretty easy for me to find the time off to go down there and see what all this was about.
Nice. So a couple of things I want to accomplish here, and because, we go through all the programs, and I think there's two discussions to be had here about track night. One is, if you're a newbie wanting to go to a track night, what do you do? Live from Virginia International Raceway, this is Inside the SCCA, sponsored by Goodyear Racing Tires and Virginia Vintage Racers for Rescues. It is early on Saturday morning after a long, wet, soggy, rock and rolling night here at VIR.
We put the umbrella away this morning, Brian. Although, we still got a little drizzle. We'll talk about them in a few minutes.
It was just a little bit of spit this morning from the rain. And I will tell you, folks, this is the story of the day today, and it was also the story of the day yesterday. That is a thing of beauty, Mr. Ginsberg.
Where's all the green stuff gone?
Yesterday, all day, the radar was just green and the little splotches of yellow. Now, this is what we've got this morning right now. We are right pretty much, we're not quite in the center. We're right above Greensboro. So you can't see my cursor there, but right above Greensboro. I don't think we're going to be completely dry today.
No, I
think we're going to be better than yesterday.
This may make for some much more challenging racing compared to what we saw yesterday, because as the rain perhaps subsides, you're going to start to see a drying track, and this is probably the worst conditions a racer could hope for. It may not be great, not be in the position where they need to go to dry tires, but when you just have that sheen of dampness on the track, there's a heck of a lot less grip, and it's a lot harder for those wet tires to work. So we'll see how things work out here. We have a number of classes this week or today that are closed wheel, but we have actually, I guess, three out of the five races this morning are going to be open wheel groups. So we'll have to see how they all handle that.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be very interesting today. And it's funny because yesterday everybody knew it was going to rain. So all of the drivers and the teams were able to plan for wet and full on wet.
That's right.
Today, and we had been told earlier in the week that the whole weekend was going to be a washout.
Right.
So there's a good chance that a lot of drivers today were planning for today to be soaking wet, and it looks like it's going to be kind of a mix.
Right.
So a whole different deal, and people are going to make some strategy decisions. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be not so good.
But that happens regardless of the weather, Brian.
Yeah, we'll stop talking about my life, okay?
All right.
All right, so let's go real quick and look at the new schedule here for today. This is a big kind of a semi-breaking news. We switched things around yesterday. So the weather was so rough yesterday that we were not able to get – well, actually, it really wasn't the weather. We didn't get the schedule done because there was a huge oil down in the third to last race of the day. And because of that third to last race of the day being so wet, we had to go back and change the schedule because we had like an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 30-minute delay.
An extended period of time, and we were reliving my favorite Brady Bunch episode yesterday, where they have the washing machine with the soap bubbles and everything all over the house here as they were laying down Tide laundry detergent around the entire track surface in order to wash the oil off of the track surface.
And we didn't think we were going to go back at all racing after that because we were getting late in the day and it was getting dark. But SCCA was able to get us back on the track, and we got the one last race in today.
And probably the most drama-filled race of the first day of racing here at the Runoffs in the on the absolutely worst conditions you could imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And so here's what happens today. We started early. Actually, it's not 7 o'clock. We went up at 6:45. So I lied on this schedule already. But the rest of the times are good. 8 a.m. is going to be the start of our racing today on
Formula X, which was originally scheduled to be our last race yesterday. We moved them up, and as you can see here, as we go down, we're going to have then the remaining portions of what was originally the schedule for today: Touring 4, GT Light, Formula V, and Spec Miata before lunch. Major difference that we're going to be that is being made in order to accommodate that additional race group. A little bit shorter, smaller breaks between the races.
Right.
Also, coming into the weekend, the original schedule was for 15 laps or 40 minutes, whichever comes first.
Right.
The time limit has been dropped down to 35 minutes. Yesterday, none of our races, I think, came anywhere close to that 35-minute time limit. They all finished under laps, but they've worked that in order to ensure that we get through the schedule today and we don't have any issues going into the third and final day of competition tomorrow.
Right. And the interesting part is you would have thought that yesterday we would have been hitting up on the time limit almost every race with the weather conditions and how difficult it was out there. And it was just a crazy situation yesterday. And what happened was we went 43 laps, which is 2.5 races, before we got our first full course yellow. And the drivers really had it together yesterday.
Yeah, and we had yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening, Jesse Prather, who won another national championship this year in e-production, his, I believe, third in a row, 6th overall. And he mentioned that this green to checker movement actually really showed that he said there was a lot more conscientious driving on track during the competition itself. Right. And of course, in very challenging conditions. And I look back to last year at Indianapolis, where even in the dry, almost every single race had an extended full course caution period. And we just did not have that here at all. Well, with 2 exceptions, of course, our STU race ended under caution, actually primarily because of that oiling down situation more than anything that really happened on track itself.
Right. Let's talk for a minute about this green to checker situation. We've got time this morning.
Yeah.
During the course of last year's runoffs and the first couple races of the year, there was a lot of issues at the Super Tour races, a lot of full course yellows. a lot of maybe over ambitious driving, I
Yes.
guess would probably be the best way to put it. And even veteran drivers sometimes, forget how to act on a racetrack.
Sure.
So the club put out what they call the Green to Checker initiative, and that Green to Checker initiative is basically I would say an edict. There's no such thing as an edict, but a suggestion, a
Yes.
strongly worded suggestion to our drivers out there
To clean things up a
to
little
to
bit.
to yeah to do a little bit better of taking care of their cars, taking care of their fellow drivers on the racetrack,
That's the big one, I
and
think.
and maybe not making that aggressive move on lap two, and and thinking about that kind of stuff. And you could tell over the course of the rest of the Super Tours, each race got a little cleaner and a little cleaner, a little cleaner. And Jess, it's like Jesse said, he thinks that more so that is part of what has been leaning into getting everybody ready to go, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we saw that yesterday. We saw great run towards the end of actually it was the e-production race.
Right.
Cars side by side. Tim Schreier, I think Joe Carr going side by side up through the S's, inches, millimeters apart. We saw it in the STU race as the Neon of Liller and the CRX of Moser went through Snake side by side, coming out of 5 and going through Snake. Really, as you would expect, the level of a championship race, very close, very tight, giving no quarter racing, but again, conscientious racing.
It is 6:54 here on the East Coast, and which means it is 3:54 in the morning on the West Coast.
Good morning, California.
So all of our peeps in California and Seattle, and I've seen people checking in this morning. Thank you for being up at dark 30. I would suggest maybe they haven't gone to bed yet.
Quite possible.
It's good stuff. We're up here early. Everything's getting started earlier than we had planned because of this. So we went up here at 7:45. 6:45.
6:45.
6:45 this morning. We're gonna start racing right at 8 o'clock this morning, and but we wanted to get on early and get going here. So it is drier, not completely dry. So what do you think? The first sessions, if we don't get much rain, first 2 races at least are going to be pretty damp.
Well, and what we saw yesterday, and given the huge amount of rain that we had all the way until about 1, 2 in the morning,
Right.
there are still going to be some large portions of this track because of the cambering and how it's laid out, where there are probably some very large puddles. Of course, the great folks, and I can see now as we look out the porch here above turn 3 that Virginia International Raceway has some of their support vehicles going around the track trying to blow the water off. It's not the NASCAR jet dryer situation, and I don't see Juan Pablo Montoya out there. So I think some of the staff is they can be safe. Mark them safe from Juan Pablo Montoya.
There you go.
But I think there's still going to be fairly treacherous conditions, if not on track itself. What we saw yesterday, and we looked to Marshall Mast, who finished on the podium in T3. He went for the wild ride coming out of Hog Pen, doing I think a 720 or a 960 or an 1120. I don't know. Early on in GT1, Dave Penterick he pretty much found the banks of the Dan River as he went off and ended up in a big mound of dirt that nobody ever finds on the exit of turn 1. If you leave the track surface, you're going to go for a very long ride in many places. Now, and I think when we had Larry McLeod here last night, His Eminence,
Yes.
talking about the racing yesterday. One of the things that he mentioned was if you do go off the track surface, a lot of the places where you're going to leave the track, they are downhill. Through the grass. And so even if you do manage to avoid some of the tire barriers and walls around the outside of the track, which for the most part are a good distance away, it is very hard, very difficult to rejoin the fray, because you're going to have to drive uphill through the rain, on some, in really low grip situations. And some of the drivers did well. Some of the formula cars that we're going to see out here throughout the rest of the course of the weekend may have some challenges doing that.
So we got a couple of minutes here before we're going to go to break. Talk to me a little bit about the racetrack. Are there areas where you think even without rain are still going to be problematic, where there's puddling typically? Where are the typical areas on this track that we have to worry about?
Sure. In damp conditions, left hook, turn 4, that fairly slow left-hander, obviously left hook. It is very polished down. It is probably the tightest corner on the track. Okay. It is typically a very late apex corner. It is a 90-degree turn, but more or less from driver's left to driver's right, it is very much polished down. It is one of those opening corners in the dry where folks will try to get an advantage before they go into turn 5 and snake. And so it is almost always 2, sometimes 3 wide there in the dry early on. As we saw in qualifying, in the dry and on the test days, and we saw yesterday as well, coming out of South Bend. I think many more drivers did well yesterday at South Bend than I expected in the wet. It is a high-speed sweeper that as you try to push the limits there, you can go for a pretty long, wild ride through the grass downhill. But as you come out of there, there's this huge compression. You rise back up to turn 11, which is what sets you up for the Oak Tree turn. And as you come up, it goes off camber, and then you set up for Oak Tree. And many drivers, both in the wet and the dry, have been going off there all week, and again, very polished down. Also, the roller coaster, turn 14 at the end of that long back straight. The drivers in the wet, they have the advantage of being overly cautious, getting into the brakes much earlier, because it is the braking zone where you carry the most speed into. So, drivers have been backing off to make sure that they make that 90-degree turn to head down the hill and complete the last third of the lap.
And the reason we're talking about all this is because if you look at our weather radar this morning, I mean, it on a normal race day, we're like, oh my God, look at all this compared to yesterday is nirvana.
Yes.
This is glorious racing weather that we're going to have today. And what makes today difficult, though, is yesterday there was no question in a driver's mind how they were going to have to drive a racetrack.
We talked to Jesse Prather yesterday. He said he set his car up for the wet race the day before he knew it was coming.
And even beyond setups today, getting on the track, now you go, okay, can I go a little deeper? When can I go deeper? How deep can I go? Oh, crap, I went too deep. Oh, my God, I went way, way, way too deep. That's still going to happen today. So, but yesterday, those questions were almost eliminated because you couldn't go deep. So that was very interesting. Okay. Let's go to our first break. When we come back, we've got one of our great partners. Angus McKenzie is going to join us to talk to us about RaceKeeper, a really cool system. We're going to do that when we come back. This is Inside the SCCA, brought to you by Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescue. Stay with us. Decades of sports car racing success comes from Goodyear Racing Tires' dedication to grassroots motorsports. Too many trophies and championships to count, and a commitment to continuing that tradition fuels continued tire development. From the professional levels of motorsports to the pinnacle of amateur racing in the SCCA, Goodyear Racing Tires are made for winning trophies. Follow @RaceGoodyear on Facebook or scan the QR code. Goodyear Racing is more driven.
Sentinel by Candelaria Racing Products is a comprehensive motorsports video system, incorporating live streaming, local recording, picture-in-picture, flag status, leaderboards, data overlays, and more. Perfect for endurance racing, sprint racing, and HPDE, Sentinel includes everything you need to get started. With the ability to control the live feed from the cloud, and GPS Auto Start will never miss an on-track moment. What are you waiting for? Get your Sentinel today.
And we are back inside the SCCA, brought to you by Goodyear Racing Tires, Vintage Racers for Rescues. I'm Brian Bielanski. He's Gregg Ginsberg. And joining us right now is clearly going to be the best accent on the show this week, Angus McKenzie. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Brian.
Oh, try that one more time.
Hello. Can you
there
hear
we
me?
go.
Knocks this thing
It's
on.
funny, people say things about my accent all the time. I don't think I've got an accent. You
Not
guys
at
have
all.
a funny accent.
Yeah, we talk funny, don't we?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from the UK.
Okay, great.
I've been here for 17 years. doing
Our
RaceKeeper stuff.
condolences on the Queen.
I know, it was a sad day. Really, it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's hope Charlie kind of takes over and does a good job.
Absolutely. So,
He will.
all right. So you have been here for us all week, and we appreciate you helping out with partnering with us on the show.
No problem.
Without
Pleasure.
great folks like you, we wouldn't be here. So you have a pretty cool system that you put in cars.
I think so. I'm glad you do too.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
We've been doing RaceKeeper video data logging systems since 2006.
Okay.
We started off making these systems for driving experiences, and then racers started asking us, hey, can we put that in our own race car? So it's a system that records video and data in a car. So yeah, sure. So we developed it for racing teams, drivers comparing each other in the team. And so we carried on since then, making things bigger, making things kind of more complicated. And a couple of years ago, we have a system. It's expensive. It does a lot of things. We're thinking this is kind of out of reach for some club racers. So we thought let's do a step change. Let's kind of change the market a little bit. Let's come out with something that's kind of $3.99, does all the same stuff, does
Right.
HD, does 2 streams of HD video, does a load of data, and helps drivers improve. So we came up with a little RoadKeeper. I've got one of these guys here. It's a RoadKeeper system. It's got all the same kind of. Can we see that
Yep,
there?
we got
all, all the same kind of brains and guts that the bigger RaceKeeper HDX2s does. This is the RoadKeeper.
Got it.
And this little guy here actually has a little piece on top. My wife calls it the carbuncle, which is, I think, kind of rude. 3D printed piece here that allows you, instead of using micro SD cards, this one allows you to use the full-size SD cards.
Oh, nice.
Some people kind of have difficulties with little tiny
Yep.
cards. So this guy, it's got 2 cameras, GPS built into this. So this is a standalone. All you got to do is give it a bit of power, and you can record all day long.
Right. So for those of you who it's really lightweight. It's got a suction cup mount. Do you have a mount that you can put it into like a Formula car as well?
We do, absolutely. We've got a few different mounts. This is a suction cup. A lot of driving instructors use this. They swap it between cars. Really easy. All you got to do is give it 12 volts. There's a roll bar mount version, and on that version, there's a piece in the back. You can put it in anywhere in the car. It also has a GPS that goes onto the roof to make sure that you get good mapping GPS for mapping, for lap timing, for doing your splits.
Right.
Driver comparison, all that kind of stuff.
And the advantage there, obviously, is it's one integrated unit as opposed to having to run wiring all the way through the car, having a separate data logger piece, multiple cameras with wires associated. I worked with
from experience.
I do actually, having worked with some World Challenge teams back in the early 2010, 2011 time, and it was always something that had to be looked after, and it actually goes into part of the design of the interior of the car.
Exactly.
To get that set up.
So my first paid job in motorsports television, I worked for a company that did the Score Off-Road series for ESPN.
Yeah.
And they hired me to climb in and out of these trophy trucks and put in the cameras.
Yeah.
So that is what you have now.
Mm-hmm.
What I put in the camera was an aluminum box that was the size of a cooler.
Yeah.
With all of the guts in it, and then the wires coming out that we'd attach somewhere on a roll bar with zip ties and racer tape.
Sure.
And the box probably weighed 8 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
And you got the wires, and you had to go in between
floating away.
sessions and change the battery and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And now fast forward to 2022, and we have this.
We've got guys using this in the off-road on the Baja series.
Amazing.
Stick it in there. Don't worry about it. You put a 128 gig card in it. It will record all day. Just don't worry about it. You don't have to think about it.
And as I look at the unit here, with the ability to articulate the camera itself and change the angles, as opposed to me sitting and for 25 minutes looking at a separate little monitor or on my phone trying to figure out the aiming on a screen. Really great design here.
Built in here as well, so you have one camera pointing at you, kind of left, right, depending where you want to put it in the car, out of the driver view, but it's a nice wide angle, so you can look and see both the driver and the instructor in the car if you're doing a driving experience, or you've got an instructor kind of teaching you.
So talk to us a little bit about the it's cool to have cameras. Okay. We like to show it to our friends and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you get into a wreck, it gets 1 billion hits on YouTube. That's cool stuff. But there's more important stuff going on here.
Absolutely.
It's tell me how this makes me a better race car driver, because I need all the help I can get.
There's one thing which is the hardware you put in the car.
Right.
The really important thing is the software you have in your computer. When you've done all your recording, you take your SD card out, put it in the computer into our Comparo software. Now you can load that up there. It's a full data video logger, so you see your nice views of video, but you also see your track map. You see a data tray showing your speeds underneath, and you can load up 2 outings side by side. You
Right.
can look at your best outing of the day and your second best, which was a 10th slower. And using our data compiler software, you can see a little delta line, which will show you the differences between those 2 outings. And you can see this straight line going along the same. There's a change in it, and it suddenly drops. I can say, why was I quicker or slower at exactly that point? You can zoom in on the data. You can zoom in on the video. You can see exactly by clicking on that data trace where you were in the track there. Why was I quicker or slower there? Was it a different line? Was I in a different gear? You can see what you're doing if you've got the system looking over your shoulder. What was happening? And it allows you to very easily, without having a data guru looking at squiggly lines all day long, saying, oh, you can see the 10th here, you can see this little blip. You don't need that. You can zoom in easily by looking at the data trace, looking at the delta line, and then see where you were in the track.
All right, so what I need to do, I need to buy 2 of those.
Exactly.
So I could put one in David Doherty's car and get his data.
Perfect.
And then get one in my car, and I can see how incredibly inadequate I am. Or learn, honestly.
It will show the differences,
Right.
definitely.
But I mean, that is a good way to find, if you can get somebody who's good
exactly
to agree to help you out, maybe, slip them a 6-pack or something.
People do this all the time. They will get their instructor to drive their car and sometimes make them look bad, but they can see how their instructor drove exactly their piece of equipment. Okay, he can do that in my car. Why can't I? They look at the video. Oh, that's what he's doing.
So back in the day, I did something similar to that, but I didn't have this. I got a guy get in my car and who was great, and he immediately went like 4 seconds faster than me on a crap.
I can't believe that for a second.
Yes, you can. Please believe that.
Okay.
It identified 2 things. He was able to pick out a bunch of stuff to make the car faster that the car had a problem with, but he wasn't able to tell me what I was doing wrong because we didn't have this technology.
Okay, yeah. Well, now you can tell. Look over the
I'm
shoulder.
sold.
Yeah.
There you go. So you all have a contingency program this week at the Runoffs?
Absolutely. Anybody running stickers on the car, running RaceKeeper stickers on the car, if you come first, second, third, we're giving hard cash away. I know it's ridiculous.
Wait, did you say cash?
People don't do that anymore. Oh, here's a token to buy one of our things and you get a cent off. No, we're giving actual hard dollars away. So if you come first in your race with a RaceKeeper sticker on your car, $150, it's yours. Come second, you get $100. Come third, $50.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and you can get those stickers in the tech tent.
You can, the tech tent. You can go to the RaceKeeper website and sign up. Click the button there, fill in your details in the form, you're signed up, or you can register over in the tech tent.
And so I guess more importantly now, I've seen Bill Stevens walking around the
of course you have.
walking around the facility.
Everywhere.
Exactly, and it's like I don't want to say he's like a hot dog salesman at a baseball game or something where he's got a whole big satchel.
RaceKeeper's here, RaceKeeper. We've got a RaceKeeper. Get your RaceKeeper here.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. He's a great guy. I used to race with him years ago in IT racing. But if they don't run into Bill, if they don't run into you, how can they go and get more information about the RaceKeeper system
Super
or
simple.
order one up?
RaceKeeper.com. We're online. If you go to RaceKeeper.com, you get all the details about this. You can see demo video on our YouTube channel, which is a link on our website as well. Go there. There's actually an SCCA token right now, a coupon on our website, which will give you $75 off. Don't tell everybody.
And that's
if you're an SCCA member, $75 off.
The saving, you take home $150 in winnings, you get $75 off. Sounds like you've got your way. Well, maybe a little less than halfway, but still.
We were talking to one chap yesterday, and he was saying, actually, I swapped this between my race car and my hauler on the way to the track, but I don't want to drop it, so I've stopped doing that. So I'm going to find another solution. We're thinking of doing a new program. Buy one of these, get a second one at a discount for your hauler. Just for that exact reason, because I put this in my road car, my daily driver. If I get a rental car, I stick one of these on the screen, just in case. You never know.
Interesting.
So it can do the road stuff and the race stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. Everybody now is using their buying dash cams online, and they still have a bit of a hardwired aspect to them. Yeah. And this is with the suction cup is really configured to just very
mobile,
quickly.
Super simple.
Yeah.
I'm actually making a mount for my bike as well. I race mountain bikes every now and again, so I'm going to make a mount on the fork, so it's got a nice ground view front and back. So
that's great.
Use it for everything: race boats, planes, helicopters.
All right. So what's the one question we didn't ask that we should have?
The one question you didn't ask. Did you ask how much it was?
No.
Didn't. Oh.
So you're just going to tell us?
I'm just going to tell you straight out. Okay. Normally it's $399 for this little guy. Our previous system was almost $3,000.
Right.
It's actually got better video. It's got great 10 hertz GPS built in, so it does all that for a really affordable price.
Nice. I can't thank you enough for helping us out here.
You guys.
Thank you.
Being one of our partners. I love the product, and I've seen it in action, and it does great stuff.
Brilliant.
And really appreciate it. And if you want to get your stuff out here, find them here.
Find us online.
Go on RaceKeeper.com.
Yep.
And
Find us there.
we'll be good.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you, guys.
When we come back, what are we going to do when we come back? We're going to talk about what happened yesterday.
Yes.
Go through some results. We'll also probably start talking about what's going to happen today.
We've got 5 races before lunch. We'll talk about them.
We'll do a little bit of that. That's next on Inside the SCCA, brought to you by Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescues. Vintage Racers for Rescues. Racers rescuing dogs and cats from high-kill rural shelters and high-risk situations. Virginia and North Carolina have the 3rd highest euthanasia rate in the U.S., and Vintage Racers for Rescues founders Robin and Dave Handy decided to do something about it. Vintage Racers for Rescues is a 501c3 charity that saves between 300 and 400 animals every year, nursing them back to health, finding foster homes, and eventually forever homes. VintageRacersForRescues.com. Use the QR code to find them on the web or to make a donation.
Grass Paddock Motorsport provides Mini Cooper race car rentals, trackside support, and coaching at tracks all over the eastern half of the country. GPM provides podium-capable rentals for B-Spec, the fastest-growing class of racing in the SCCA, for 3 years running, and now the 4th largest class overall. We have a unique approach where our cars are located near the track you want to race instead of being in a central location with large towing fees. Come join us at Grass Paddock Motorsports, where Grass Paddock is an attitude and not a location. Mention this ad for a 10% discount and find us at www.grasspaddock.com.
Racing for Heroes is proud to be a partner of Inside the SCCA. RFH is a nonprofit devoted to helping veterans suffering from the seen and unseen wounds of war through racing and our range of programs. RFH's programs include health and wellness, motorsports therapy, community outreach, education, and employment. Visit racingforheroes.org to learn more and find out how you can help. Cruise Associates is honored to have sponsored this message. Welcome back to Inside the SCCA. Got a little of that morning music going. Got my cup of Joe, although it's almost empty. What am I going to do for the next half hour?
You got me.
I don't know. We're going to get more of that. All we're missing now is a croissant or some Krispy Kremes. Or maybe some of the Awful Waffle.
Oh, Waffle House.
First thing I did when I got... So we don't have... I'm going to go way off track here this morning. We don't have Waffle Houses in California. And so what did I do? The first thing I did, I got off the plane in Charlotte. I went directly to the Waffle House. And got my scattered, smothered, and covered. This is not sponsored by Waffle House, by the way. If you'd like... Although if Waffle House would like to sponsor us, everyone knows how to get a hold of them.
And this is only because I haven't introduced you to Biscuitville in Danville yet, by the way.
So I've been to Biscuitville a long, long time ago, and I wish we were not doing a morning show because we could go and get biscuits for breakfast. All right,
next
day 2.
Year. We'll remember this for next year.
Day 2. I don't believe that there's any possible way that there could be a day 2 that could be as soggy as day 1.
Hopefully not. I mean, as the sun is coming up, as we can see the track, it is definitely...
It's gray.
Yeah, it is very gray, and the track is still incredibly damp. And what we saw yesterday also, I think with some of the early groups, and this is certainly going to be the case for our second race of the day, Touring 4, is that... the previous group probably not going to have enough cars on track to really generate dry lines and really evacuate the water off of the race surface. Right. And it will, even if the rain stops, it's going to take a couple of races, I think, until we start to see a dry line come in.
Exactly. And when it does get dry, the track's going to be very green.
Yes.
4 days of rubber built up is all gone. All gone. So, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting today. Let's take a peek at the schedule here. Oh, no. There it is.
There we go.
This has all been changed because of having to miss a race yesterday. We're going to start our racing at 8 o'clock this morning, FX. And then we're going to bank through Touring 4, GT Light, Formula V, and Spec Miata. These are the start times. As been described to me by the powers to be at the SCCA, this is a very ambitious schedule.
Ambitious, little bit shorter gaps between the races, and the plan is to create as much room in the afternoon as possible in case we do have some issues with track conditions.
Exactly.
And as we mentioned, the race is still a 15-lap national championship race. but down to only a time limit of 35 minutes versus
Correct.
40 minutes.
Correct. And what's interesting is, so normally we have 9 races. We're going to get 10 in today. So normally we only have 4 in the morning and then 5 after lunch today. We're going to get in 5 before lunch. And so yesterday's schedule, if it had been proper or normal, the last race of the day was supposed to start at 4:45 with only 9 races. So today we're going to try to start at 4:15 with only 10 races. But exactly, you're right. That gives us time at the end of the day. We learned yesterday we can race until about 6:45 or so.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of light to try to get the schedule in. And Mother Nature looks like it's cooperating or going to cooperate more. I think we'll probably get a little bit more rain, but nothing like yesterday. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. So, all right, so let's go through here and talk a little bit about what we did yesterday here. And
we stayed dry.
We did stay dry.
If you joined us for our show last night, we had the umbrella in here the whole time. We were in good shape.
We did. We had an umbrella indoors, so we were all set. Here is
and that also means nothing but bad luck for us for the next 5 years or so.
Yeah.
All right.
So these are our afternoon races yesterday.
Yes.
We started with E-Production, and last night we had Jesse Prather on as a guest, which of course you can go back to the YouTube and watch. And by the way, subscribe and like this. It really helps us.
Yes,
and,
absolutely. And there are 3 different channels that we're being broadcast on. The SCCA official channel, the Racer Network, which is Racer Magazine's channel, as well as
the Racing Network.
There we go.
And on YouTube, so you can watch us on any of those. The Racer Network, you can actually just go to racer.com. And you can find the link right from there. That's probably the easiest way to get to that stream. And then, of course, the official SCCA stream as well is what we're up on as well. So, but please like and subscribe, whichever one you're watching. We want everyone to get the love. But that helps everybody involved, helps us keep doing more of this. All right, back to E-Production.
Yes.
Jesse Prather, our class winner, our now 6-time national champion. Second place was Peter Norton. Third place, John Hainsworth. Fourth is Tim Schreier, and Joe Carr fifth. This was a fun race to watch.
It was, and we expected Jesse, and he was very humble when he was in here. He said, but he also made it very clear. All of the things that he does as part of his race program to prepare for a wet race, down to brake compounds, down to testing and tuning under wet conditions when you can, and from the drop of the green flag, he was the person to beat. Peter Norton, who started 5th in probably the least powerful car in the field, in his Lotus Caterham 7.
Right.
As I mentioned, started 5th. Worked his way up into second. He was only about 10-15 seconds behind Prather when the checkered flag flew. John Hainsworth, who started on the front row, finished with that last spot on the podium. But I think, again, the race to watch yesterday was actually the race just off the podium in 4th, with Tim Schreier and Joe Carr. Carr, having started 8th, moved up 3 positions, finishing 5th, and a great race there. John Brackey, unfortunately, who started on the inside of row number 2 in a car that was new to him, that he was just trying to get a handle on in the dry during practice and during qualifying. In the wet, he handled it masterfully, but only was able to make it to 6th yesterday.
And this was a perfect example. Jesse came on yesterday, and he's from Kansas, so he's done plenty of racing in the rain, and that's definitely an advantage. And then you've got, on the kind of like the antithesis of that, you've got Peter Norton. I don't know what his rain experience was, but he kind of has the perfect car for
right.
it. So, that was a great example of kind of 2 different ways to get the job done in the rain. So,
exactly.
All right, Spec Racer Ford 3. This is one of my favorite classes. This was my first ever.
Yeah, so you raced
my first ever car that I ever raced in was a sports Renault. You can all laugh now. That tells you how old I am. My first race car was that I raced in was a sports Renault. That was for those who don't know, who might not know, that was the original Spec Racer Ford. And it's morphed now to 4.
We're on Gen 3 now for the past actually since I guess 2016 with a 1.6 liter motor from a newer, no longer current Ford product, but we had that change. This was the first year for the 6-speed sequential SADEV transmissions. Last year they were in testing. This year the majority of the front half of the field were running these transmissions. It's obviously changed up the gearing here at Virginia International Raceway. It's given the drivers the ability to left foot brake into some corners that they could not really do before with the H-pattern box, and it made for a very interesting race. Now, Frank Futrell, who was your fastest driver all week, every day of qualifying, he was your fastest driver from the get-go. He opened up an advantage. Russ Turner, out of Montpelier, Virginia, finishing second. He had a battle on his hands. He had John Black, who is a former national champion, and as well as Dave Ogburn, who is a tire testing engineer. Really closed things down on him in the last legs of this race. It was a 3-car battle for the second position on the podium. Going into the very last lap, all 3 of them came up on some slower lapped traffic going into the uphill S's. Dave Ogburn, as he mentioned last night on social media, went from a podium to a very large repair bill as he went off in the S's, and the nose of his front Spec Racer Ford, not just the fiberglass nose, but the entire frame at about a 45-degree angle to where it should be. So John Black ended up finishing behind Russ Turner, and then Brian Schofield, a former national champion in his own right, finishing just off the podium in 4th, Caleb Schrader 5th. But, this is one of those fields. It was a 44-car field, very tight racing from the front to the back. But once again, Frank Futrell showed that he had really a command on the rest of the field from the start of the runoffs to the national championship, his very first national championship.
All right, moving on to STU.
His first national championship in Spec Racer Ford.
Right. Yeah. Moving on to STU, Joe Mosier was is your 2022 gold medal winner. Chip Hare came in second. Anthony Geraci, thank you, was third. Jason Nazario fourth, and Mark Liller fifth. This was the race that caused our big delay.
Yes, and perhaps caused the biggest heartache, and for one person there sitting at the bottom of that slide, and the one name that is not here is Johann Schwartz. He was your pole sitter in a veritable rocket ship during qualifying in Kip Van Steenberg's Porsche 944, a car that won a national championship in E-Production. Kip had some issues that kept him from racing, and so Johann, pro race driver, noted for having the Guinness World Record for the longest drift in a car. I was hoping to see him drift all the way around 3.27 mile, 17-turn Virginia International Raceway on a victory lap, but it was not to be. Joe Moser challenged him going into turns 1, 2, 3, and as I mentioned, left hook, where you always have, that's turn 4, where you always have drivers side by side, and it was pretty clear that Porsche was not a happy car in the rain, and Johann had trouble getting the car woed down.
And we talked about this yesterday with Jay Chapman from Goodyear, how important having fresh rain tires
is.
Sometimes you buy rain tires in our sport, and they sit in the trailer or they sit in the garage.
You use them once a year or once every 2 years.
Right. And what makes rain tires work really well is when they're soft and sticky.
And when they have temperature in them as well. They have to get warmed up.
So Johann said after the race he was on old, hard rain tires. And that, I think, was the absolute difference for him, because there really should have been the guy to win that race.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything was up to speed, right?
Absolutely. And so, but I think the big story here, even though Joe Moser is your winner, there are 2 drivers that I thought put on amazing drives. One of them, Mark Liller, driver of Dodge Neon SRT. He started 8th in the race. By the time they got to turn 1 on the very last lap, he was up into 3rd. Towards the end of the first lap, he was already challenging Joe Moser for the lead. On lap number 2, he took the lead. Okay. Chip Hare started 19th in a 19-car field, and by the end of lap number 1, he was up to 5th position. Okay. And as they went out now on lap I told you that Mark Lower had moved up to the lead on lap number 2. We had oil down on almost the entire track on lap number 3.
Right.
And just before the field went to a full course caution, Mark Lower got caught up in that oil, spun the car, fell back to 5th, which moved Joe Mosier up to the lead. Chip Herr moved from that 5th position up to 2nd on that 3rd lap.
Right.
And I might also add Chip Herr, who was in qualifying this week, was running his Audi A4, an all-wheel drive car, the same car that he ran in Pirelli World Challenge back in the early 2000s that he picked up. He finished on the podium, finished 2nd last year at Indianapolis in the car, had a huge shunt in this car at the pit race Super Tour, had spent all summer rebuilding it. And then as they went out for qualifying this week, he had nothing but problems with the transmission. He swapped into a Subaru WRX that was provided by another competitor, Andy Pacelli, and Herr with a great run. So what ended up happening? The race ended under WO. They black flagged the field.
Right.
On the same lap as the full course caution. They brought actually on the next lap, on the 4th lap, they black flagged the field, which would bring everything back to lap number 3. And that is where we ended. We had, as we mentioned, about an hour and a half of cleanup here at the track. And so with only 3 laps complete in the books, Joe Mosier, your national champion.
And our last race of the day yesterday.
Amazing.
This was also amazing. This was a race in the absolute worst conditions I've actually seen us as a club in 30 years actually go out and race in.
35 to 50 mile per hour gusts of wind, and you could see the sheets of rain coming across the racetrack. For those of you that watched, and I urge, because we have the recordings up on the SCCA official YouTube channel. You can go back and watch the race. And every time the cameras zoomed in, everything got all fuzzy because there was water. I think the Perseverance Award should go to all of our corner workers and those cameramen that were on the scissor lifts.
Yeah.
But the car control that the Ott brothers in their BMW Z4Ms exhibited, Marshall Mast, who was our reigning national champion coming into the weekend in his Phoenix Performance Ford Mustang. He had a couple bobbles. He went for I think 6 or 7 or maybe 12 spins through the grass coming out of Oak Tree on one lap. Robbie Hines managed to get past him, had an off going into the uphill S's, but Jason Ott, on his 21st start at the Runoffs, takes home his first national championship. His brother sat in the car on the victory lap as they finished 1-2. It was a great finish to the day.
It was fantastic. Okay, so we're going to get the break here, but before we do that, you mentioned it already. We cannot thank enough today the workers who stood outside in the rain yesterday in what was in deplorable conditions.
Yeah. I was going to say, I say it all the time. The SCCA, it is a member-run, it is a club, it is a member-run organization. All of the events, including the national championship runoffs, we could not make them work without the huge core. And I hate when we call them workers, frankly. They are volunteers.
Yep.
They come from all around the country. They come from Canada to help put these races on. And yesterday, so many of them, not just our flag marshals, our folks on the pit lane, our folks on the grid, everybody was
Our
out.
Victory Circle team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody had to deal with these horrible conditions, and again, we want to thank all of you for getting us through this weekend.
And also, big shout out to Apex Broadcasting, who put on the actual race broadcasts. Their guys up in these scissor lifts in this wind. Did something that I would not be willing to do, and they put together a system that worked almost 100% flawlessly through the entire race without any technical problems until the final interview of the last race of the day. They had just a little tiny hiccup, and for someone who's done live broadcasting for a long time, that is just remarkable. So great job to those guys. And we can only imagine that the next couple of days are going to be just as good for them.
Just as good, yeah.
All right, we're going to get to break, and then when we come back, we're going to introduce you to the Twig. That is next on Inside the SCCA, brought to you by Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescues. Decades of sports car racing success comes from Goodyear Racing Tires' dedication to grassroots motorsports. Too many trophies and championships to count, and a commitment to continuing that tradition fuels continued tire development. From the professional levels of motorsports to the pinnacle of amateur racing in the SCCA, Goodyear Racing Tires are made for winning trophies. Follow @RaceGoodyear on Facebook or scan the QR code. Goodyear Racing is more driven. The RoadKeeper HD video and data logger was developed using our experience in motorsports, driving experiences, and beyond. It brings dual stream HD video combined with high-quality GPS data within reach of everyone at the track or on the road. Travinci Systems is an official Runoffs contingency sponsor, and it's not too late to sign up. On-site registration is available at the contingency desk in Tech. The RoadKeeper HD meets SCCA's requirements for forward-facing cameras. Take advantage of 2022 Runoffs pricing for the RoadKeeper HD, $324 plus shipping. That's $75 off. Offer is good through Christmas. And we are back. This is Inside the SCCA, 7:33 a.m. here in beautiful gray but somewhat dry
Danville, Alton, Virginia,
Milton, North Carolina.
Yeah, somewhere
here.
We're in like the Bermuda Triangle over here at VIR. Yeah.
About 9 o'clock last night, we're sitting in the motorhome, and I'm
sitting. I was hanging on for dear life.
Well, I was gonna say, when you go sailing, they have these things where you can like shackle yourself onto the boat. So if you get pulled, you'll at least I felt like I needed shackles inside the motorhome last night.
Yes.
To put me onto a.
We were on either side of the motorhome to counterbalance the weight, basically. Is what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, if you need people for counterbalance, I am your man. It was fun. Yesterday, wet. Yesterday, last night was even wetter. The worst of the storm came through after we got done, or pretty much started during that last race.
Right.
And then it got worse throughout the night till about midnight, and then it still just rained all night. The winds have died down, thankfully, for the most part. At the moment, it looks dry. And that is a good sign, looking at what we've got. We are, and I need to center this up a little bit, but Greensboro's top left of the screen here, or middle left, we are right above Greensboro, right on the North Carolina-Virginia line.
Yeah, so we're just kind of right on the southern edge of the water. And when he says it's dry, it's the precipitation is
not falling as
not
much.
Falling. The track still very wet.
Yes, the track will still be very wet. So, all right, so let's run through real quick, and as we get ready to get out. Oh, actually, first,
yes,
we have to introduce people to
the Twig.
The Twig, and let's do that right now. A Rolex 24 at Daytona winner, a two-time champion of the 12 Hours of Sebring, a member of the prestigious Road Racing Drivers Club, and the Twig. Today we find the Twig at Virginia International Raceway, driving an MX-5 Cup car. The Twig is driving Spark Virtual Racing's S600. The S600 is a full-on driver training simulator. Unlike entry-level sim systems, this rig moves across all 6 degrees of freedom, making it a truly full-motion system that provides maximum feedback from the car. At $80,000, it's the ultimate training tool, providing a seat-of-the-pants feel that's remarkably close to what you feel when you are at the track. Let's find out what kind of lap time the Twig can lay down at VIR.
So we are out here at Virginia International Raceway in a Global MX-5 car here on the Spark Virtual Racing Halo Motion Simulator here. Trying to go for a fast lap. And man, it's different, right? Driving this Spec Miata car, I can feel it really starting to understeer, move around a little bit more. You can feel the softness of this car, which is so much different than a lot of the cars that I've used to driving, the stiffer aero platforms of modern GT3 cars. They don't slide around as much. They don't have the pendulum effect of a soft MX-5 car here. Alrighty, think about hog pen. Let's get that good run out of here. All that curve. Rolling down, flat, right at the compression. There we go. Car sliding. Woo, every inch of the road there. That was a pretty decent exit. Get ready for a fast lap here. So I need that late, aggressive break into turn 1, looking for that 3 board. The 5th gear. Take a breath. Getting ready. Eyes are in. Boom, 3 board. There we go. Down to the apex point, back to full throttle, let the car be free out of here, go, 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 don't scrub speed. Thinking about turn 3, I want to be nice and light on the brakes to roll in speed. Nice and light, there we go, get down to that apex point, hey, what do you know, there we go, use all the road, that was okay, not great, into turn 4. Ooh, a little late on that turning point, not great, that's going to cost me some lap time. Alright, I need to be flat from here on out, all the way to turn 10. Let's use this curve here, to do a little release, a little early on the turning point, get it together, hands straight, and we're good. Whew, take a breath into the S's here. You need to be inch perfect, the first S, so that everything else is just working out for me. There we go, that was a good one. Jump this curve. Keep that right foot on the floor, right foot on the floor. Come on. Alrighty, nice and light on the brakes, roll speed into turn 10, there it goes, float, 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 use every inch of the road, nice. Braking just past the 2-board, boom, hard on the initial braking, there we go, release enough, roll speed, there we go. Back to flat the apex point, get the run out of here onto the back straightaway. Could have used a little bit more speed through Oak Tree, but my exit was good, and that's my main priority here. Take a nice breath, down the back straightaway. Big brake zone coming up. I need to make sure I hit that apex point in turn 14, but I need to make sure I'm maximizing my brake pressure too. Nice and late on the brakes. Looking for that aero board. Let's go. Wham! Hard on the brakes. Get the car slowed down. Can I get it? No, too much speed, but I need to go, 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 go. Don't let it cost you. There we go. Alrighty, attack it through hog pen, turning in flat. Use this curve, light on the brakes again. Car rotates, boom, back to full throttle. Come on, car. Tell me I don't suck today with my lap time, please. And it's still not gonna be very fast. Come on, let's go. Come on. Well, that's a little bit better.
2:12.91. That's a good lap.
It's a very good lap, and you know, and that's in a current MX-5 Cup car. Back when I ran STU here just before the 2010 runoffs, the previous iteration of the MX-5 Cup car, the NC Miata, they were looking at like 216s or so. Big changes there. We saw the Twig in the current iteration with the sequential transmission and more power and a little bit better aero, and yeah, it's a very quick run through here through VIR. Certainly not on GT1 levels here, but still a very quick lap.
So here's the deal: if you're here at VIR, go up to the pavilion, up by all the vendors, and Spark Virtual has that $80,000 sim rig set up there for you to plant your touch in and give it a shot and see if you can beat the Twig.
You know what they say, you break it, you buy it, of course. But
yeah, I've seen how well that thing's built. You can't break
it.
So, and these guys have got a really cool system up there. Go out and test drive it. Go out and try to beat the Twig's time, 2:12.91, and see if you can do that. And they'll be up here today and tomorrow. So go see those guys. And I believe Matt is the guy from Spark Video, who is a fantastic guy, Matt McGivern. He is going to join us tonight.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
To talk a little bit about that rig. They also have a less expensive option as well. And we should be clear, these aren't just sim racing toys.
No.
And these are legit driver training tools. You can certainly use it for sim racing.
Sure.
But the goal for these rigs is for you to get in them and try to translate what's happening in the rig into what happens on the racetrack. So
now, tell me this. Of course, we want to maintain the mystery. Are we ever going to find out the true identity of the Twig?
I think you'll have to tune into the last broadcast on Sunday night.
Okay.
And I think we're going to reveal the Twig.
All right, stick around.
We'll ask Matt tonight if that's the plan, but I'm pretty sure that's the plan. Okay. Because we did some other stuff with the Twig that we're actually going to show him off a little bit. So, because he loved the system, and we want to hear from him. So, all right, real quick before we get to today's qualifiers and everything, we did a whole segment yesterday on the Workers of the Year.
Yes.
And your technical director, me, messed up. And we did not have audio on that segment. So you were able to see who they were, but you did not hear the glowing things that we said about them.
So we're gonna talk about it a little bit more during tonight's show, our wrap-up show this evening. We wanted to apologize to everybody who was waiting with bated breath to hear everything that we had to say. All the glowing
probably
things.
Didn't care what we had to say.
If they were at the worker party and the Worker of the Year presentation presented by Mazda, they would have heard all the glowing things about these people.
All right, let's get to today's coverage.
All right.
Here it. Oh no! Wait on a second. That's the one I want.
No,
all right.
Well, except we're missing one.
No. Well, okay.
All right. We'll get back. There you go. All right. So we're going to start off first race of the day. Again, this is the race that was delayed from yesterday. Trevor Russell, your pole sitter. Austin Hill, Kevin Fandozzi. There is a spread of almost 6 seconds between our top 3 drivers, and but again, qualifying all week in the drive, very different conditions here. We did see Trevor Russell yesterday in the wet. He's already had some experience here and knows kind of what the track will do. But again, a very different course, I think, than what he encountered yesterday. All right, let's move over now to our next group, and that is Touring 4. Yep. John Heinrichsey, many time national champion. He is your provisional pole sitter in his Hoosier Hawk Mobile 1 Toyota 86. Devin Anderson, who's going to start right next to him, did not go out for qualifying on the very first day, qualified only 0.35 of a second off of Heinrichsey's times. We've got we've got Marshall Mast in the number 31 Phoenix Performance Scion. Of course, he just finished up on the podium yesterday in T3, and I would not count out Sergio Slobin, who last year in 2021 had a run of 8 straight races where he took the win on the Super Tour. Angelica Spray, also in a Scion FRS, probably a Subaru BRZ. I think she's definitely one to look for, having qualified in 5th. All right, so
GT Lights.
GT Lights. Now, this one I have mixed feelings about. We've got Peter Shadowin in his Honda CRX. But I believe this is actually a rear-wheel drive CRX, not a front-wheel drive CRX. Was your provisional pole sitter after the first day of qualifying, held that time all the way through all 3 days of qualifying. Brian Lynn, who is a 2-time national champion, was not able to eclipse it, but finished almost 0.7 of a second off of that pole time set by Shadowin. He's going to start on the outside of the front row. Jonathan Goodale, in his Mazda MX-5, a very balanced car, is going to start 3rd. Michael Lewis, many-time national champion, in a car that is splitting time between GT Light and GT3, so multiple engine swaps going on during the week for that machine, and he is going to be starting 4th. But one of the folks that I want everybody to look out for, Graham Fuller, driver of the number 2 Honda CRX. This is a front-wheel drive car. He is out of the Washington, D.C. region, has a ton of experience here at Virginia International Raceway, both in the wet and the dry. Took home the win at the Super Tour here back in April.
All right, let's go on to Formula V. Brian Farnham is your pole sitter. Andrew Whitson will be on the outside of the front row.
Yeah, and so Andrew Whitson, he is your reigning national champion. He took the win here in 2019. He and his brother, they sandwiched Hunter Phelps Barron on the podium back in 2019, and those two drivers definitely work together on track, have radio communications between them. Brian Farnham, though, he's going to be very strong here, but I would definitely look for Zach and Andrew. Sports Car Magazine picks Zach to take the win, but Andrew's looked a little bit stronger in qualifying all week long. Another driver to always look out for, Alex Scaler. We remember back in 2020 at Road America, where he was fifth, about 10 seconds back from the field with 3 laps to go. Managed to get right back up to the lead pack on the very last lap, going through Bill Mitchell when everything went completely cockeyed and cross-eyed. But he's starting 4th, definitely somebody to look for. And also Lauren Bralier, who's starting in 6th. She took a win from Stephen Davis earlier this year at CMP. She's I believe 17 or 18 years old, first year in Formula V's, but has been very strong all year.
Okay, and what might be our race of the day, 60 cars on the grid, all of them trying to funnel into turn 1. It's possible that by this race, we could have a fairly dry racetrack.
We could, definitely. And Danny Stain, he is your pole sitter, first time on pole in Spec Miata at the National Championship Runoffs. Of course, he is a multi-time STL champion, and he's been on the pole multiple times in STL for the runoffs. And he did that in the dry, of course, and I'm sure he's hoping for dry weather. I look back to the June sprints back in 2020 where it was a wet race. He was on pole, and he jumped out to an early lead, fell off, and the rest of the field came back to him. But Preston Pardis, who is our only three-time national champion, he's going to be starting on the outside of the front row. But this is a field that is just absolutely filled with talent. We've got Chuck McTudis, who's with OPM Autosports this year. This is his home track, and he is out of Little Mountain, South Carolina. He's starting third. We've got Travis Wiley, who was down the majority of the week down at Road Atlanta for the Idemitsu MX-5 Cup. He is our Mazda First Gear Challenge winner this year. He was the driver 25 or under in Spec Miata to garner the most points. He actually got a free entry to the runoff, entry into the runoffs this year. Again, he set a time, fourth fastest, has not been here, and he did that on the first day of qualifying, hasn't been here. But we also have Connor Zilish, who finished third at the runoffs last year. He was battling it out for the MX-5 Cup Championship this weekend. He was tied coming into the very last day, and he is, of course, coming back up for the race. But huge, very capable field. We've got Elvin Goulart in the field, who's starting sixth. We always have Jim Drago here. We've got Todd Burris, who took the win here in 2017. These are all drivers that have a chance to win here, and if the track is still damp, I really think it's anybody's race. Frankly, I think it's anybody's race, even in the dry.
Right. All right.
And by the way, I want to apologize. We've got Danny Stain's name spelled incorrectly here. It's Steyn.
Oh.
Apologize to Danny there.
Again, we blame that on the graphic artist. That's me, as you might understand. And it's funny how we joke about this, but it's you and me and Brian here helping us out this weekend. And I'm doing all the button pressing and trying to do a little bit of talking in the middle. And
usually I'm the button presser.
Well, there you go. You've been pressing my buttons all damn weekend.
That's what I mean. Not on the technical side.
Exactly. All weekend you've been pressing my buttons. But so it's not we're aiming to bring you some fun and some information, and sometimes a little bit of a hiccup here, and it's all kind of par for the course. So, Danny, we apologize. We'll get that fixed by the time. If you win the race, we'll have you right there with your name spelled perfectly at the top.
Absolutely.
So, fantastic stuff. All right, we are now at 7:49. We're 10 minutes and 50 seconds away from a green flag here. Let's get right to today's schedule. And there it is. Breakfast at the Runoffs. Oh, that's us.
That's us.
Yeah, we're almost done. Starting at 8 o'clock, we've got our racing here. FX Touring 4 is going to go off hopefully around 8:50. And again, all these times are kind of estimates. We've got a lot of time built in the schedule for things to slide if we have some issues, followed by GT Lights, Formula V, and Spec Miata before lunch. We will be back at lunch doing our thing.
Yes.
And we had some fun with that.
And after lunch, or during our lunch show, we're gonna talk about a little bit of drama going on with some of our afternoon races. But B-Spec, Formula Atlantic, H Production, Prototype 1, Touring 2, which is a race, especially if it's wet. And I know of at least one T2 driver who is out in the paddock this very moment doing a rain race, probably a rain dance for his Honda. But that is going to be, I think, an amazing race. And then, of course, after racing is complete today, we're going to be back here with Inside the SCCA Runoffs After Dark.
Absolutely. Also want to let people know that we did have some issues last night. I had issues last night with the Worker of the Year presentation that we did. We're going to repeat that and do it all over again so you can hear all the great things that we said about the folks who won Worker of the Year. We'll do that on tonight's show, so tune in for that. We've also got guests scheduled throughout the day. We're going to talk more about the awards that we're giving out, our Perseverance Under 25 Veterans Challenge and Women on Track Awards, as well as the G-Dub Henderson 2022 Award of Excellence, who will go to one of the drivers who won that. By this evening, we'll have named the folks who won yesterday's awards, and we're just waiting now for our broadcast partner, Apex, to come up and start the live broadcast. We're excited. It's
We are.
it's relatively. It's not. There's nothing falling much from the sky. This is so crazy.
I can see the track today. Yesterday afternoon, from about 3 p.m. on, I couldn't see anything. Except the trees waving back and forth over here, back and forth with that wind. And actually, as we are getting ready to go back and go to our live broadcast here of our very first race, FX should mention that, and maybe the especially for our Formula Car races, maybe the wet track is one part of the story. But with those huge winds that we had for a good portion of the day yesterday, it certainly impacted some of the Formula Car races. I will put a bet on the Formula X drivers, thanking their lucky stars and the weather gods that the winds now have almost completely died down. It is looking like very still, calm air here.
Yeah.
If they were going out into that sideways rain with 35-mile-per-hour winds, not only would it be painful for them behind the cockpit,
right,
but it would make for some much larger variables in the handling of their cars than they had hoped for, I'm sure. So I think they're gonna be very happy that they're getting what they have here.
And we just lost our screen here to see where the show's going to pop up here. But until that happens, we're going to keep chatting here. One of the things we have an opportunity to do here is we don't have the oak tree because the oak tree left, but we have an oak tree that we can see out our window.
Right.
And yesterday, that oak tree looked like it was in a hurricane.
Yes.
Because it was a tropical storm and it was blown. Right now, I don't see the leaves on that tree moving at all. Or if I do, it's so little that I can't see it from 300 yards away, and that tree was all over the place yesterday. So definitely the winds have died down tremendously, if not completely, and I'm looking forward to that. And it's just been a pretty cool situation here to see things kind of dry up as far as what's coming from the sky. I'll be very interested to see how many sessions it takes for the track to get dry or for that dry line to start developing. And then you're going to come to that point in time where you have a dry line and a wet line, and then you have to just make some decisions. When are you going to pass? And when does the non-dry line become dry, and all of that. So,
well, I mean, and as we talked with Jesse Prather yesterday, and you and I are both racers. I hate to call myself a former racer because
you're never a former racer.
I hope to be back here at this track racing for a national championship in H production next year. Mark it down on your calendars right now. But when you are out in the rain, and maybe when it stops raining or when it continues to rain, the track is different every single lap.
Right.
Each corner is different every single lap, and it is always a race of experimentation.
Right.
As compared to having a dry track surface, your braking distances change from lap to lap, corner to corner. The amount of grip, where you can go offline in order to affect the pass, changes lap after lap, entry to corner, exit to corner, and it is the most stressful type of racing that you can have because there are so many unknowns.
Real quick, before we head out, we want to thank the good folks at SCCA Gear, or at Shirts 101. They provided us with these amazing shirts to wear on air. They look fantastic. Great people to work with. If you need shirts for your team, go to Rick. Check out, send an email to rick@shirts101.com. If you want to buy stuff, sccagear.com, or downstairs at the merchandise tent. All right, we're getting ready to go live racing. We're going to be done here. Brian Donati is our helper, our PA, our do everything guy. Thank you, Brian. He's Gregg Ginsberg. I'm Brian Bielanski. See you at lunchtime.